You're going to be voting tonight. We're all set? Alrighty, I would like to call to order the July 8th, 2025 Auburn, Maine Planning Board. I will start with roll call to my left.
Ed Barra.
Bob Hayes.
Stacy LeBlanc.
Bilal Hussein.
Tim DeRoche.
Maureen Hopkins.
Gengeda Adolph.
All right, excellent. So we have a few members not present today, so I will elevate Ed Bear and Bilal. Can you pronounce?
Bilal.
Last name, Hussein, to full members with voting privileges. All right, so the next item on the agenda is our meeting minutes from the June 10th meeting. At this point in time, I would seek a motion to either approve the meeting minutes or approve with amendments.
I'll move approval.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, so moved. All right, so the next item on the agenda is a public hearing site plan review of the
Wait.
65, go ahead.
You should have had two sets of minutes in there.
Oh, you know what? I did see two sets of minutes, but I'll be frank with you. The agenda just had one on it.
My apologies.
Okay. So I wasn't sure if it was like accidentally sent in there or, okay.
You had two meetings since our last meeting.
Okay. So would you like me to approve the minutes from the other one?
If the board feels that they are confident enough to approve those minutes, that would be great.
It's a June 18th meeting minutes that are in the packet. So I'll leave it up to the board if someone wants to make a motion to approve or amend.
That was the secondary meeting for Brickyard Commons, correct? Yeah, I
Correct.
wasn't present for that, so I won't be able to speak on that.
Okay.
I was present and I would move approval, but I think that when we finally finished, we were down to 3, and Riley was the other, so I don't know what the board's practice is if members vote.
So there's
on it.
only 3 of the 4 of us that were there.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we'll just put it on next month's agenda.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Maybe that's why you did that.
Sorry.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the public hearing heights site plan review for 65 Mount Auburn Ave, a Chick-fil-A restaurant. I will hand it over to staff.
So the applicant is proposing a 5,100 square foot restaurant drive-through restaurant with 2 drive-through lanes, 46 new off-street parking spaces, and the address is 65 Mount Auburn Ave, which currently holds Hobby Lobby, the mattress firm, and the Case Jeweler. Is there anything else I should add to like essential details? That's the pretty big outline, unless you guys have any particular questions.
Okay, so before we ask the applicant to come forward, does any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll have the applicant.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Joey Fonseca. I'm with Bowler, project manager. Here today to discuss the proposed Chick-fil-A project here in Auburn. With me here today is Jason Adams with Bowman Consulting. He's our traffic consultant. And also with us today is Zach Middlebrooks. He's the principal development lead with Chick-fil-A here as well. So as most of you know, this location, this is the Turner Street Center Plaza, and this is the existing grass pad location that is sort of east of the existing Hobby Lobby building. I'm just going to zoom into this location. So we're going to be discussing kind of this area here that's highlighted in red here. Again, it's just a gravel pad today. This is just an existing conditions plan. Again, just kind of highlighting sort of the area here and kind of this skin color here for the locus area, and again the existing Hobby Lobby at the top of the page here. And there's currently access to the site, obviously via the plaza, main entrance off of Mount Auburn, but there's also access at the rear of the site via the Turner Street Rotary, sort of east of this site location as well. And I'll just zoom in here. So this is the existing rotary here. You can access towards the rear or also access the main entrance drive off of Mount Auburn. Mount Auburn is fully signalized as well into the site. So most of you probably know the history of this, but I think back in, I think it was 91, when this was approved, there was a much larger building here. I think it was an old, I think it was going to be a Market Basket at one point, but it was a large grocery store. Only the Hobby Lobby was constructed. This grass pad has been sort of vacant for many years now. The overall parcel that includes this pad contains about 3.9 acres. This pad itself is about a 40,000 square foot pad area that we're proposing to develop today. And the only other improvements on the site are the existing Starbucks and then a 6,500 square foot multi-tenant building where the Mattress Firm building is located today, and that building is closer towards Mount Auburn. There's existing utilities already sort of stubbed out at the site for water and sewer, and then certainly we'll be coordinating with the utility companies to bring in the gas and the electric as well as part of this proposal. So under the, and then, sorry, stormwater, this entire site has an overall stormwater approval. All the catch basins that are capturing stormwater generated on site are all conveyed towards a stormwater basin that's located kind of on the east of the property here, between Turner Street and the parcel. Everything's kind of directed towards there. So under the proposed condition, I'm just going to switch over to a rendering, just really kind of highlighting the proposed conditions here. We're proposing a 5,200 square foot Chick-fil-A restaurant. There'll be 90 interior seats, approximately 12 exterior seats here for the outdoor patio seating. There's a 2-lane drive-through associated with this use. Along with the drive-through, there are 2 covered patio locations, kind of shown here in this gray shaded area on the screen here, as 2 canopy locations over the drive-through, the proposed drive-through for the restaurant. So the building is it's situated in an area where it allows us to create the drive-through capacity that this restaurant requires. It is located kind of towards the rear of this, I call this grass parcel, and then we're trying to propose the remainder of the site to be parking along the front. It's shared parking throughout this parcel. We are kind of limited with space here, and certainly limited with how many parks we could propose out front given the drive-through, but we are able to provide, oops, sorry about that, able to provide 25 spaces within our pad area, and again, having shared parking throughout the plaza itself. We're proposing a trash enclosure at the rear of the site. Like I said, the site is pretty tight. This location at the rear is kind of a location where there is a lot of deliveries. At the rear of the building, it sort of made sense to have the trash enclosure at the rear here for easy access for a front-end loaded trash truck to kind of pull in empty and then just exit down towards Turner Street, as opposed to navigating internally into the site, which would be somewhat difficult given the size of it. So as you enter the site, we're proposing a slight modification to the curb. Currently, the driveway that leads out to sort of the rear drive and then ultimately down to Turner Street is a pretty wide drive, and we're tapering that down with adding an additional curb line here. So we're increasing the landscaping that's out there, certainly over the prior proposal with the larger building here. So we're kind of taking away some additional paving, keeping in mind that there are trucks that still access this from the rear of the site. So we need to make sure that we've got large sweeping curbs here to be able for a truck to be able to maneuver into the site as well from the rear. But as far as the overall limits of the plaza, we're really trying to just limit our construction, the landscaping, the sidewalks, the curbing to really within that pad area to kind of limit construction outside of it. So given that, it's a really compact site, but we're able to achieve what Chick-fil-A needs as far as drive-through stacking internally on site, and then just operationally for the parking requirements here. We provide a full design package with utilities. We've got landscaping improvements for this area, again, just kind of limiting it to our pad area, and we've also provided the lighting plan as well. Again, it's a smaller site. There isn't, there's only two additional light poles in the parking area, so it's not, there's going to be additional lighting from the surrounding plaza. It's going to also bleed into the site as well. So we've designed the site just to meet the minimum safety requirements for lighting here as well. Drainage, again, it's similar to the existing condition. We're going to be proposing some additional catch basins throughout to capture the stormwater that's generated on site. This will add for additional water quality just due to deep sump catch basins within those new catch basins. And then it's just going to be tied into the existing drainage system. And again, everything gets conveyed towards the stormwater basin along Turner Street. I think that's really it, just as a high level, proposal here for it. Certainly here to answer any questions that you all might have. But we're really just, creating 2 additional curb cuts into the site, really trying to just keep the existing site as is, and just trying to fit our layout within that pad area to minimize disturbance here. I've got Jason Adams here as well that can give a brief presentation on the traffic. He prepared a traffic memo for this. And then after that, we can certainly here to answer any questions if you all have for public comment or even staff level comments as well.
All right, so before we hear about the traffic, any questions for?
A couple quick ones I have, yeah.
Yep.
So I'm a visual person, and I'm trying to, I know it's just under 5,200 square feet, but say relative to the Scarborough location, are we same size, smaller, bigger?
Relative to the Scarborough,
Westbrook, I mean.
sorry,
Westbrook.
Westbrook.
Yeah.
This is a larger building.
Larger.
Westbrook is I believe that's the rectangle building. So I believe that's around 5,000. So it's a little bit larger. It's 5,200 square feet. So it's a little bit larger than that.
All right, and the gentleman on traffic might mention this, but you said shared parking. I'm correct in assuming that means beyond your 25 designated spaces of your property, there's agreement between the other property owners, Hobby Lobby, Mattress Firm, whatever, to also use those spaces. 'Cause
Correct.
I think we all know what this place will look like once it's up and running, and just want to be aware of parking and traffic and stuff like that.
Correct, yeah. There already is existing parking agreements in place, so certainly as the lease negotiations continue with Chick-fil-A, that'll be certainly a big part of it. I will say the parking south, or I guess this is east of the Chick-fil-A, this parking will also be dedicated for Chick-fil-A parking, likely the employee parking here. But this area has been designated, and again, there's cross parking.
All right, thank you very much.
Another question for you.
And you may lateral this to the traffic fellow if you wish, but can you show me the best plan you have and then describe for me the access off Turner Street? Because I look at the site development plan, the very front one here, and it looks like it's coming off that rotary, but I can't see where the access is once I leave the rotary to get to your site.
So I'll just start with this overall aerial here. So this is the rotary here. You would, as you head through the rotary, you take a hard left into this is the existing drive aisle. I'm just indicating with my hand here. You can see that. As you enter, then you're going to take a right and then take another right to enter the parking lot here. As you exit, this is all two-way traffic flow throughout. It's not one-way. So you can either enter the drive-through, and as you exit, you'll exit onto a drive lane, or if you're parking to dine indoors, again, it's kind of a two-way, so it can be counter or clockwise flow, but basically you'll end up out into the Plaza Road, Ring Road, that's directly in front of Hobby Lobby. You can exit out onto Mount Auburn from here, or you can exit back onto Turner Street and head into that rotary. This is all two-way. Yeah, it's all two-way surrounding it. In the back here, correct, and that's two-way as well. Yeah. It will. So coming off the rotary, this is that's an existing condition that's there. We're just sort of, we're tightening up the curbing here just because there is a grade change from our site down to Turner Street. There's about a 5 to 6 foot elevation change from, our drive-through down to the Turner Street elevation here. So we're kind of pushing that curb out, just keeping that 30-foot width. Currently, it ranges from 30 to, it's over 40 feet along there. I think it's just how, when this pad was prepped, they just kind of left the pavement where it was. So it wasn't a defined drive aisle. We're kind of giving it a little bit more definition there. But as far as the entrance itself, that's where the existing location is today, and that's going to remain.
Bob, any questions?
I guess my questions were answered. I guess I sort of had the same concern. I was hoping maybe there'd be one-way exit on that existing road towards the rotary as opposed to coming in from the rotary and having access. Yep, that's a difficult stretch.
Yeah, but I'm hearing the applicant say that it's already an existing condition, right?
It is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
All right, so it's not.
It's existing two-way travel, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Maybe existing, but there's nothing there. I mean, nobody uses that. I mean, I travel over that almost daily, and nobody's using that little strip of land there. There's not a present interaction of traffic coming and going over your proposed driveway at present.
You mean as far as use of this existing drive aisle that comes in? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we were on site earlier. I did note a lot of traffic, mostly headed behind Hobby Lobby to get over to the Petco side. There were a few that went, that took a right and then headed towards Starbucks. But I mean, it is use, it's not heavy use, but I think a lot of people are using the Mount Auburn intersection as well and heading towards the rear. But I suspect there will be, customers that will be using it certainly with the Chick-fil-A location here. So keeping it two-way, I think is, as it exists, is critical.
All good conversation.
Good evening. For the record, Jason Adams with Bowman Consulting. Just to pick up on that conversation a little bit, I mean, taking a look at the overall plaza, we do feel that there's a lot of benefits to how many access points there are. A site like Chick-fil-A is certainly going to generate new vehicle trips coming to the site, but it's also going to draw vehicle trips from within the existing plaza and just that are already traveling past the roadway. So, I think the majority of trips here probably do come in off of Mount Auburn to the point of that rear access. The more access, the better generally, because the vehicle trips get distributed. Drivers have a more convenient path to and from and between, different members or different pieces of the shopping areas around here. The Chick-fil-A fits in nicely as a complementary use. So, as we looked at everything and worked with Joey and his team, we felt that was a pretty big positive to maintain that existing condition there. In terms of a traffic review here, the site, when it was permitted with a certain number of vehicle trips that were expected to be generated by the project. So we spoke with the city planning department at time of approval in 2006. The site was permitted with about 584 weekday afternoon peak hour trips. There's currently about 260 weekday afternoon peak hour trips. So there's a delta of about 320 peak hour trips that essentially have already been permitted when things like the overall access and the overall impact of the development were looked at on the adjacent roadway system. So what we did was prepared a memo that looked at the trip generating characteristics of the Chick-fil-A, which comes in at about 180 weekday afternoon peak hour trips, and that is comprised of new trips to the area, someone that would not already be here, vehicle trips coming that are already on the roadway that would divert into the Chick-fil-A, and those vehicles that are already within the shopping plaza that wouldn't even have an additional external trip to Turner Street or Mount Auburn Street or any of the surrounding roadways. They would just go to the Chick-fil-A before or after an existing trip. So all told, the number of trips that would be expected to be generated by the Chick-fil-A is below the total number of approved trips for the plaza, and as such, the site is considered to fit well within what was originally intended when the project was permitted. We have taken a look with Joey and his team at access and overall layout and feel that the site will meet the needs of the traveling public and interact well with the surrounding land uses.
All right, any questions?
I just want to put this out there. I think we all know if this is approved and once it opens, we could have the most stellar traffic pattern in the world and it's still going to be a mess. And just because of Chick-fil-A's popularity, period. I think it's important to realize much what happened in Westbrook. Upon the opening, there's going to be a massive traffic, but over time, we need to consider what the normal everyday is going to be post-opening and make our discussions on that. Because whenever you have a new place open, it's going to be popular and it's going to be crazy for a while. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I had a question relating to pass-by trips. So could you like define what a pass-by trip, what that would look like?
Sure. So a pass-by trip is a vehicle that is already traveling on a particular roadway. So someone driving from their home to their place of work in the morning that is already on Mount Auburn Street that would then turn into a use like a Chick-fil-A where they would typically just drive from their home to their place of business is considered a pass-by trip. So if you did a traffic count before or after the driveway for this plaza, the pass-by trip wouldn't change the number there because that vehicle is already on the roadway. So Chick-fil-A ideally gets a greater market share of those trips, but they're not a new trip to the number of vehicles going through a particular traffic signal or making a particular movement along the roadway. The Institute of Transportation Engineers for this land use estimates that the pass-by trip is about 55% of the total trips to this site. So in other words, a restaurant of this nature, many people are often going as part of another time that they're in their vehicle and not just singularly going to get lunch or dinner or whatever the case may be.
You mentioned that the original traffic study for the capacity and all was done in 2006. And you may have heard my earlier question about the access off the rotary on Turner Street. Was that rotary there in 2006, or was that added subsequently? And if it was consideration for the proximity of that access onto your property, which I asked about earlier, taken into consideration when that was changed, if it was changed?
So in 2006, the city did a full Auburn Mall master plan, which looked at pretty much this whole area up to Gracelawn, the Auburn Mall parcel, the Walmart parcel, and all the intersections. And then they bonded infrastructure to be built out for these build-out plans. So that roundabout was part of that plans. It went in years later because of municipal funding and stuff like that, but it was anticipated to be there and to anticipate all this extra traffic for the build-out that would eventually come from these pad sites in the existing buildings.
Good question, though. All right, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, we appreciate it. Any other questions for staff or the applicant before I open it up for public comment?
No, other than just we did receive staff comments. It was mid-June, which we responded. And, I know that I think most of those comments were addressed. I'm not sure if there's any other additional comments. We did receive the recommendation. So I know there are some discussion points there. So if there's anything additional, we're certainly here to answer any additional questions.
So yeah, I saw one of the staff suggestions was to develop a sidewalk. I don't know which side, if it's the Mount Auburn side or if it's the Turner Street side, but what is discussion about that? Are you open to establishing a sidewalk on that side?
Yeah, I think that was one of our discussion points for tonight as well, is to understand the language I was a little bit confused on language. I wasn't sure if it was providing an extension that they would connect into the Mount Auburn Ave pedestrian access in the mall to our site, or if it was from Turner Street. So we're certainly here to discuss that. So I think that was just one point of clarification. We can certainly respond.
Yes, I made a mistake on the staff reports. It was supposed to be connecting into the Turner Street connection in the back. After speaking with the city engineer, it was recommended that possibly there was some there could be an access route if they took out some landscaping, or possibly on the other side where that parking's going in, but would really like to see some way to connect to the sidewalk that's on Turner Street and to make this whole parcel a little more pedestrian friendly than it is currently.
So we did kind of look at, holistically, just kind of looking at the overall mall, and just kind of looked at what the existing access is here today. So under the Mount Auburn side, which is this lower corner here, there is access out onto Mount Auburn that goes into the site, and then there is a sidewalk that heads along Hobby Lobby in front of it, and our plans don't show a sidewalk connection to that Hobby Lobby sidewalk. Sorry, I'm just jumping all over the place, but just trying to paint the picture. But we could certainly connect, this is the existing Hobby Lobby sidewalk here. We could certainly provide a sidewalk connection along the front. We'd have to just kind of relocate this tree here. But provide sidewalk access to our central sidewalk here that will gain access to the restaurant. We're certainly open to that. That's certainly something we can accommodate. As far as the Turner Street side goes, there's a couple of hurdles to make this happen. One is the existing sidewalk ends kind of where my cursor is today. And that is off our parcel. This thicker parcel line here is the parcel that the Chick-fil-A is located in. So the sidewalk ends in the abutting parcel south of us. This is also about 5 to 6 feet lower in elevation than, say, the drive aisle that is up top where this parking is. And there is a pretty abrupt grade change right at the sidewalk, which this might be hard to, actually this one might be easier to see. So this is where the existing sidewalk ends here, and this is again just kind of this is probably about a 3-foot grade change between this catch basin and the sidewalk here. So as far as making it an accessible path, this drive aisle is already over 8% as you head down towards Turner Street, which is over the 5% minimum for the crosswalk. It would be challenging. This image also kind of highlights kind of how steep that drive aisle is as you head in. So we looked at, is there a possibility to, again, propose a crosswalk potentially from this, the end of the sidewalk connection here, across the drive aisle, to then tie into our site up the hill into our building. The problem that we're seeing is that rotary there's a lot of traffic movements there. You've got people that are heading towards the rear of Hobby Lobby, people that are taking a left into the site, and then you've got cars exiting that are either going left or right. There's a lot of traffic movements there, and again, you're coming down kind of an 8% slope as you head down towards that crosswalk. So I'm not sure that's the best location for a crosswalk, and I'm not sure if that's why this ended here when it was constructed, which I assume was constructed at the time of the rotary. But there is no opposing landing on the opposite side of the rotary from this sidewalk. That is I think it's the Lamy Wellahan building that's on that side. There's an existing retaining wall in front of it, and I think there's a drainage basin up high too. So it doesn't extend across the rotary there either. So what our proposal is to then, to use the Mount Auburn Street pedestrian access that's internal to the mall and tie in to that existing Hobby Lobby sidewalk to, again, kind of continue that pedestrian access internally, certainly give customers that ability to gain access to Chick-fil-A through Mount Auburn to tie into that existing pedestrian connection. It's just a little bit challenging at that location. And one other point, the walkway that I think was being referred to was along the drive-through here, along this section of the drive-through. This is only about 3 feet wide, which we would need to make that 5 feet and also add a patio or some sort of a barrier between the sidewalk and the drive-through, which is then going to kind of steal some of that width as well. So we're sort of pinched as far as width goes there for a formal sidewalk, and then as well as some of the elevation hurdles that we're going to face to make this an accessible path from Turner Street.
For what it's the board's consideration, we've talked about this with the city engineer, and from staff's perspective, we would feel that pedestrian safety is certainly important out there. While this isn't maybe the most pedestrian-heavy area in the community out there, that's not to say that people aren't potentially going to use this site. This is a very intense traffic use that's going to be put there. So we do, Natalie has prepared a condition for the board's consideration tied to that, given staff's recommendation. We understand the applicant's concerns. Neither one of us are engineers, they are, but we've talked about, putting it on the north side where Joey just mentioned. That aisle width out there right now is 30 feet wide. It's wider than it needs to be. It can be narrower out there and still accommodate delivery trucks and whatnot out there. In fact, narrower might be better to slow down traffic going through there, since maybe to Ed's point, there isn't a lot of traffic out there now, but there will be. So could you potentially narrow that down, put a sidewalk along the north side where the landscaping is? Maybe. The south side there right now has a guardrail on it, where his cursor is. Could those spaces, could a sidewalk be included there, and is everything bumped to the north? There's room there. To Joey's point, there's grade issues out there that make that challenging, but it's something that we think might be worth exploring. The crosswalk there that is on the left side now is good. It also just lands you into a grass pad in the back of a bunch of parking spaces out there. I'm guessing, I would think too that staff is most likely going to park over there. But certainly if it is busy and they're not parking in front of the site, they're going to park on the side of the site. How do we get people there? A question I did have when you were talking about the connectivity from Hobby Lobby, I'm not sure that the sidewalk goes in front of Hobby Lobby. I don't know about that. I've been to Hobby Lobby, and I know you can walk through from the left to the right in their foyer there, but I don't know if there's a sidewalk in front
So
of it.
I just want to stay focused on that one item before we head to the Hobby Lobby one. So I think in the very beginning of our conversation, I think there was some concern with traffic. I think I heard a little bit from you, Ed, that's two-way traffic, and then that tight turnaround. And then we're having that conversation, and then we're then talking about, oh, hey, let's put a crosswalk in, and then put people in front of that traffic. So I guess I would welcome the thoughts of the board to see how they feel about adding an opportunity and a welcome mat for the pedestrians to move freely in an area that I feel like we already had some concerns from a traffic perspective. But
Yeah, Stacy, I think you hit the nail on the head. Being an Auburn resident for the past 20 years, being very familiar with that site through my own personal shopping, foot traffic at that roundabout into that shopping area, from my experience, is minimal at best. And my 2 cents is we don't necessarily want to invite people to potentially get into harm's way. And realistically speaking, I honestly think the vast majority of Chick-fil-A's traffic, foot traffic, is going to come from the parking lot side, not people walking up from the roundabout. So I don't really know how heavily that needs to be entertained. That's just my 2 cents.
Just a reminder that the college is just up the road, and they are taking more and more students who are living on campus.
But I don't think anyone's going to walk from Central Maine College in February to Chick-fil-A.
So if you could go back, I just saw you were on a slide. One of the graphics, maybe the last one that you were on. No, not this one.
Was it the pictures?
The pictures, yeah. Actually, no, it was the map. It was the map. Yeah.
Was it this one?
No, the one above that.
It's overall.
Yeah, if you could zoom into. I just saw it.
I was zoomed in here.
Yeah, it was like right here. Yeah. So yeah, if you could go for a little bit north, a little bit up. So I mean, to counter that point that you made, I think that the location of that bus stop signals that there's going to be people getting off at that stop. So if there was someone on the bus that wanted to come to this location, there's no infrastructure there in place right now, on that Turner Street intersection.
yeah, but they're not crossing. So they're recommending it on
the property side, right?
They're recommending it. See where the red dot is, right
Yeah.
there. That's where they're recommending
Exactly.
it. That's gonna move traffic
Right.
heading this way. So people coming from like Panera, and that's gonna head traffic this way.
Right.
That bus stop, it's fine, right?
Right.
Like they can just move across there. But I don't it's only my personal opinion, this is a board, and this is why we come together and collaborate together, is I don't love the two access, like the access points to like come around there and open up, like I said, a welcome mat for pedestrian. That's just my personal opinion. And I am all about like open space and providing walkability. So I just don't think putting a walking path right in front of a roundabout is maybe the smartest path, is my personal opinion.
That's my point as well.
Could you point out where the existing sidewalk that comes down from the apartments ends in front of Lamy Wellahan?
I'm not sure that there is a sidewalk on that side. I think it's on this side, on the east side of Turner. You can see the crosswalks that lead to here. Because currently there's a retaining wall along this corner, and I believe this is a stormwater basin here. So there's no sidewalk on the west side.
So the connectivity that we're really talking about is coming up Turner Street and then going into that circle and then having the abrupt elevation
Correct.
change.
Right in through here.
When you mentioned apartments, Bill, did you mean the Auburn Mall apartments that are south of that?
No, I was thinking across from St. Mary's.
The new ones in the
yeah,
corner.
Because
okay.
we,
Yeah, but
Yeah, 'cause
there isn't a sidewalk. The sidewalk there ends at the Grange Hall anyway, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
well, I think for the apartments across from St. Mary's, one of the conditions was monies went into the sidewalk from that development, I believe. Or part of the project did require the developer to put in part of that sidewalk.
Is
Yeah.
that internal to this plaza? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
that's not,
referencing?
we're not gonna, that's a different project.
Well, I guess, just to follow through, I'm trying to, again, connectivity, if we do have sidewalks and if we have a bus stop, I do see that we should address connectivity. So if we can work, and I think that's why we do have maybe the change of a language, it is going to take some time to really study this out. But I think we have an obligation, if we had a condition, and would have to check that, a condition for those apartments across from St. Mary's to contribute to provide a sidewalk towards the mall, I think the city has some obligation to continue that connectivity.
Okay, so can you take that away, staff? He's talking about the Graceland Apartments. Can you take that away in terms of any sort of agreement from a sidewalk connectivity standpoint? I want to stick with this one, and I definitely hear what you're saying, Bob, and I'm all about that. I think it's just going to add to a more vibrant community. But I welcome other people's thoughts about a sidewalk right off of the Rotary with this project.
There is ordinance language about sidewalks, so I'm not addressing the Grace Lawn, but just in general, that is probably how they got that in, and it has to do with the amount of frontage you have and how much we can require the applicant to essentially be responsible for.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we open it up to public comment? Because I feel like we're having like discussion at this point in time, and then we can bring it back to us, the board, and the applicant, and then continue the conversation. So at this point in time, I would seek a motion to open public comment.
Moved.
Do you have a second?
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor? Excellent. So if you'd like to come forward, state your name to the podium. You have 5 minutes, your address, and we'd like to hear from you. Okay, seeing none, I would seek a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
All right, do you have a second?
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor? Okay, back to the conversation. Good, go ahead.
So I'll leave the Rotary and the potential sidewalk near it for the moment and ask a question and follow up to David's observation or tentative observation that there really may not be a sidewalk in front of Hobby Lobby. I mean, so can we zoom in on something that gives us an idea of what that is and how we could make if that is to be the alternative, how we can make it more meaningful.
Yeah, and just for sake of conversation and clarifying on that one, is it an alternative, or are we saying this is what we can have? We have these two options, we can have both, we can have one, or we can have the other, right?
Yeah, I think it's more of if we're trying to connect the existing pedestrian access on site, the sidewalk, this might not be the best picture, but this is the Hobby Lobby, so our site is to the right of the building. It's the sidewalk that I was referencing in front of the building. We could, we'll look at the grades. I think our survey ends right at the building, but, we can certainly provide a sidewalk connection to that. We'd have to coordinate that because that property line runs right down the edge of the building, so we'll need to coordinate that with the abutting property owner there. But I don't see that as being an issue. Another option as well that we could provide to and Jason was just mentioning it, and we also discussed this earlier, is we've got, I believe this is about a 4-foot path between the building and the drive-through area here, and even the parking here, of removing the plantings that are along the building here and providing a sidewalk. Again, we're not, because we still have a grade change back here from the bus stop that was being discussed to the site, but we could provide, it would be an at-grade sidewalk along the rear of the building, kind of in between the Hobby Lobby building and our site, that would give pedestrians access, along the side of the building, and also then connect into the mall, or then into, Chick-fil-A as well. So we could certainly look at that option. Again, we're not providing an accessible route from the bus stop to the sidewalk, but we could provide a sidewalk there that might allow some. Again, I think this area is tough for pedestrian access, like you had mentioned. I think there's a lot of traffic that heads towards the rear of the building both ways. So we're inviting pedestrians to cross there, but certainly striping it for crosswalks, accessibility, all that. Again, we're dealing with probably 7-8% grades along the back there as well. But that's another option that we could potentially look at as well.
If I could just follow up, two questions. One, the sidewalk in front of Hobby Lobby. So we get from your site to Hobby Lobby, and then we cross in front of the Hobby Lobby, and then we can cross basically a street there with a 4-way intersection at the corner of Hobby Lobby and the Petco intersection there. And that's pretty busy in that vicinity. Could we require like a raised road crossing there as the sidewalk is extended? And actually now, I guess that you're showing me that, we walk across the front of Hobby Lobby, and then I thought it was an intersection. It's not. Where do we go once we cross in front of Hobby Lobby? And then bear in mind, what I'm wondering is how safe it is to be crossing there without some sort of traffic calming devices along there.
If I can interject real quick, the Hobby Lobby sidewalk, it's deceiving. It's on the left and right side of the Hobby Lobby doors. You would actually have to go through the Hobby Lobby foyer to get from the left all the way across. So there is not sidewalk that jets out in front of the store. And it's there in the parking lot, but
yeah, we'll verify that condition. It appears, I can't recall when we were there on site, but if I recall, there was a sidewalk in front of that. But you're right, it might be a little deceiving along the front. Yeah. Yeah, you can see, I believe you can see the sidewalk here.
So did I hear you say you would do a sidewalk connecting Hobby Lobby to Chick-fil-A, and then between Chick-fil-A and forgive me, I don't know the street, that's leading up to Lamy Wellahan, that red line?
Correct.
Was that part of the proposal?
It wasn't. We were landscaping that area because it's just kind of a lawn area there between the
So that would be the
two
bus
buildings.
connectivity right there.
yeah, can you zoom in on that picture just above where your dumpsters are? Zoom right in there. There's your sidewalk access from the back with a
So-
crosswalk across the driveway,
Yeah,
correct?
so this is for team member access to be able to, to move their trash receptacles through the drive-through to the trash closure. We don't want, or we would want to restrict customers crossing the drive-through. We want to keep the drive-through traffic just to the team members that are going to be within the drive-through, and then obviously customers in the drive-through. But I mean, we can certainly provide, or look at providing, sidewalk between the building. This will be limited to just Chick-fil-A employees. As it's just giving you access to the back house.
That's fine, I understand that. From my perspective, eliminating that hedgerow between the two buildings and having a 4-foot wide sidewalk at night between two buildings that's not heavily watched, I think that's not really the safest setup. I don't think that's a great idea, personally.
I would have that concern if there are two structures that there was just that narrow passage, but I mean, the parking area, Chick-fil-A's structure is quite small. It's going to be lit at night quite extensively. So I do see the connectivity allowing from the bus stop to come across and actually access both Hobby Lobby as well as Chick-fil-A. So I do see that as a alternative that should be explored.
I have a question without any answers, I guess, but what is there to moving a bus stop? I said before I drive through there quite regularly. I didn't know there was a bus stop there. Now
I know, I didn't
maybe-
either. I was like, wow, that was a good eye.
Yeah, what is there to this bus stop, and what is there to relocating a bus stop? Is that something the city does, or is it the local transportation authority?
It would depend what bus line is stopping there, because there's multiple that go through the city.
Well, I think it's the purple bus that most people see out there, and that service is going to be changing here to some extent, where it's almost going to be an on-call type service,
Okay.
where it'll pick you up where you want to be type thing, depending on where that route is. There'll still be some fixed routes. Don't ask me which ones those are. So that can move. If that's a fixed route site out there, that's something that's coordinated through AvCog, and basically a division of AvCog that administers the bus program and whatnot. So it's something that could be explored potentially.
And for members of the public who don't know, AvCog is the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments.
All right, so how does the board feel about these sidewalks?
For me, joining to the front of Hobby Lobby makes the most sense in regards to what real-life pedestrian traffic is going to be, especially knowing what I know pedestrian traffic's already like down there. It's just what makes sense. That's my 2 cents. And going any further than that, I think you're inviting people to go to places they probably shouldn't be walking.
Anyone else? Because we're going to hopefully have like a motion here pretty soon.
Yeah, I'll say, obviously Auburn is very car-centric, and, there's a comp plan going about that could long-term change the impact of what Auburn will look like in the future. So keeping that in mind and keeping in mind the proposal today, I feel like keeping this, not car-centric and focused on people that take the bus, people that walk every day on their daily routine, and making it more accessible to them, particularly to this plaza and to this project itself. So I would be in favor of a motion to have connectivity to Turner Street, either a crosswalk or some sort of sidewalk, whether it's elevated, just some sort of connectivity from Turner Street to this plaza and to this Chick-fil-A location.
And I did write a proposed condition that would just ask the applicant to go back and speak with the city engineers and look at some alternatives, so it doesn't, and have them provide maybe a memo on their findings.
Okay, Maureen, we haven't heard from you. Do you have any thoughts around this?
No, I agree that people will probably try to access it from the rear. I don't know that we want to encourage that, and I don't think the site is really set up to put any type of sidewalk in there that's going to be practical. So I would not be in favor of requiring any additional sidewalks at this time. And I do think that that is something that maybe the comprehensive plan can look at and look at ways that the overall property could be accessed better in the future, but I'm not sure that it would be specific to this project.
I mean, I definitely get your point. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have like small building blocks that lead to like a better foundation without a question. But then when is the greater good in jeopardy of the, you know, the smaller good and greater of the greater good, right? Like I'd hate to have something happen in this area because we invited it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm torn both ways, to be frank with you, but.
And have 8 businesses somewhere and then all of a sudden get a 9th one and oops, now we need a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I think Maureen hit a point about the comprehensive plan. I'm not convinced this rests on Chick-fil-A's shoulders either.
No, but I think what Bilal is saying is like if every time we come, to Bob's point, if people follow through on small incremental steps to be able to allow a greater connectivity from a walkability and bike and not car-centric, then just it's small building blocks, but I don't know. I don't know if a building block off of a heavily traveled roundabout is the right way to start. So that's just my personal opinion.
And I'll just say off Maureen's point, the comprehensive plan can only guide future zoning changes. It can't go back and rebuild a built environment. So it's really the project's development reviews and site plans and getting that infrastructure put in along the way.
I know.
So it would be a future project coming in that would be the opportunity for us to ask if.
Yeah. Well, and again, like I am all about it, but I don't know if we start the building block abutting a rotary. But my 2 cents.
You know, I do like the language that staff has provided us is essentially as a condition, it would allow at least some time for the developer as well as city staff, the city engineer, essentially to consider this a little further. So it wouldn't delay the project, but would just allow us a little more time to, you know, think through this in a little more detail.
Okay, so if we had a motion, which we all have in our packet, right? So that potentially, depending upon who makes the motion, and let me know if anyone does not have this, by the way.
I only circulated 2 copies.
Okay, I can hand it over. It would be an item D, correct?
It would be C. It would be in place of,
Of C?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'd be
3.
striking northern edge of access road connecting to Mount Auburn Avenue.
Yes.
With new verbiage, correct?
Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right, so I think at this moment we've had a lot of discussion. If there's anything new that some people would like to put forward, that's great. If not,
This is the third.
I would like to.
Yep.
sure.
I agree with Tim's thoughts regarding probably the most reasonable pedestrian access to a Chick-fil-A is into the development that this is going to be incorporated into, and for all the reasons said, probably down near the roundabout is not a good location for a sidewalk. That being said, I'd like to see where this sidewalk goes after it gets to Hobby Lobby. I mean, then what? Where's the pedestrian traffic go from there? Because I'm anticipating that people shopping at Kohl's will send their kids down to Chick-fil-A or things of that nature. So they're going to be walking through a parking lot. How am I going to get from there, somewhere other than Hobby Lobby, to Chick-fil-A?
So then my question would be, because I think you're talking about on the side of Hobby Lobby, that is not their parcel of land, correct? So I don't know if that's in their purview, right, to be able to, maybe it's staff's purview, I don't know.
It may not be within their purview, and if it's not, they shouldn't be recommending it as a solution to pedestrian connectivity if it's a sidewalk to essentially.
I thought the sidewalk was between Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A. I think you're talking, see where that little bus is right there? Is that where you're talking about potentially putting I'm confused, sorry, maybe it's me.
I think you're describing this location, right? In between?
No, I think, see
Oh,
where you
you're
see the
on the
little
other side.
bus.
There's a crosswalk from Petco to Hobby Lobby at the top center of the screen.
Thank you.
And then there's a sidewalk that comes down the side of Hobby Lobby,
Correct, does this.
and then it turns in front of Hobby Lobby. Correct.
Correct.
And it's If I were to make a motion, I would be asking to connect Hobby Lobby's sidewalk to Chick-fil-A's sidewalk, and that's where my motion would end. Because realistically speaking, the traffic's going to come from the parking lots. Whoever goes to any store at any time walks through a parking lot to get to the store from wherever they parked. There's going to be people traversing parking lots to get to Hobby Lobby. That's just how parking lots work. We all know that. I just don't know if the traffic behind, the foot traffic behind Hobby Lobby necessitates the engineering, the cost, the changes, and the invitation of bringing pedestrians potentially into harm's way of a heavily traveled roundabout. That's just why I would just want to see the connection at the front of the stores.
Well, I'm still a little perplexed that we're going to be traversing, people are going to be walking through 9 acres of parking lot to get to the Hobby Lobby sidewalk to get to the Chick-fil-A. I just would like to see a little more effort made to delineate that parking in a better fashion. I mentioned perhaps a raised crossing somewhere. That just strikes me that you're inviting people to now walk
I'm going to
cross-country to a
interrupt you real
parking
quick.
lot.
Where would you like to see the raised crossing? I'm trying to visualize where you're, I think I'm missing your point. So where would you like to see the raised crossing?
To the extent that people will follow the sidewalk pattern, I'd want to see it where you see, where you see the crossing between Petco and Hobby Lobby.
That's what I thought. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, and so Tim is saying he doesn't feel like there's going to be pedestrian traffic from that other site. And I mean, listen, in the summertime, yeah. And I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
I believe staff was concerned about maybe traffic coming from the mall that comes across, and there is a sidewalk already on Turner Street, so if there were pedestrians on that pathway, now they're crossing the street regardless.
I'd like to see a show of hands. People worried about traffic from the mall versus Kohl's. Like, I don't know. I don't know who shops at the mall anymore, but.
No, I mean, I understand the board's dilemma here, and I think you guys have had a great conversation about it. When you review projects, you know, you're looking at traffic, you're looking at pedestrian circulation, you're making sure it's safe out there. This is as much planning for this immediate project as it is the future out there. Just making sure. I mean, there's crosswalks already in the roundabout out there. Whether that's a good idea or not, there's crosswalks out there. That was done because it's contemplated that there will be pedestrian traffic out there at some point. So, again, we have a condition for you guys to consider. If that's what where you'd like to go, that's great.
Sure.
Certainly you guys can go any direction you're looking.
Yeah, okay. All right, so at this, do you have another question, Ed?
I appreciate the staff's condition. I just don't really see where it gets us. If the developer is not of a mind to want to build that sidewalk down on Turner Street, they're just going to say no, and then we will have given our approval anyway. So we need to kind of have an idea of where the sidewalk's going to be if the developer is not prepared to have that discussion with you.
I think it's worded a little differently than that. Yeah, if no suitable connection can be identified, the project shall return back to the planning board with a memo from the city engineer outlining their findings. Potentially, to your point, Ed, it may just be delaying it because they may just say, no, we're not going to do it, unless we can have a conversation where we come up with some solutions that, you know, both the city staff, the engineer, and the applicant are able to agree upon. But again, from our perspective, we've been looking at this with connectivity to Turner Street. There wasn't really a discussion about getting across Hobby Lobby over to Petco and whatnot.
All right, any other questions? And if not, then I would ask for a motion.
If I could just clarify,
Sure.
for that condition, is the discussion to modify the language for that condition, or is the motion to allow, my only concern with that language is if what we're coming up with, any type of connection off of Turner Street isn't in line with the city engineer's perspective, and then that's a condition of approval, does that hold up the restaurant from being open? And now we've got further delays. That's my only concern about that. There's been a lot of discussion about why that won't work. And to Mr. DeRoche's comment just regarding that, maybe that condition is just relating to the connectivity to Hobby Lobby. I think that's certainly language that we'd consider. I think keeping it open-ended from a connection from Turner Street just makes me a little nervous as how that is going to play out from an approval process and even just a restaurant opening process.
Yeah, so can I ask a real direct question, staff? Do we have an opinion from the city engineer that this is a doable sidewalk? Like, does the city engineer say this is 100% viable and feasible?
I wouldn't give it 100%, but the city engineer does believe that a sidewalk is plausible.
You can make it compliant, ADA compliant sidewalk?
And I don't know how much detail he's looked into this, and unfortunately, he's on vacation this week, so that's not.
I mean, that's my, if I can just say one thing, sorry, I know there's been a lot of discussion. I'm Zach Middlebrooks with Chick-fil-A. We are not opposed to pedestrian connectivity by any means. I mean, we got outdoor seating, we want the people in the restaurant. I'm just concerned about the grades, and that's really kind of the basis of all this discussion.
Concerned about the what?
The grade
Okay.
change, and like we talked about, there's a lot of movement right there. I'm more worried about the safety and how you make this all tie together, given what's out there right now. I mean, that's really the biggest discussion, and I think that's why we've kind of been focused on how do we get the pedestrians in, and if there is already infrastructure off of Mount Auburn tying into that, especially hearing that this bus stop, I didn't even know there was a bus stop all the times I've been out here. I don't live there, but I didn't know there was a bus stop. But if that's going away, and there's also another bus stop icon in the shopping center where there's already connectivity, that's kind of where we've been looking at. Again, we'll do whatever. Like, we'll definitely go back to the drawing boards. I've been out there multiple times. We were out there before we came to the meeting. I'm no engineer. I don't have a stamp to put on this. I don't know how you make that work. I don't know how you get an ADA sidewalk over those driveways with the car movements coming in, because I watched quite a few people coming down the hill through the roundabout and shoot straight to Starbucks. And they weren't slowing down.
Right, he's bringing up the very points I have in mind. It's not pedestrian friendly. And then if we have a sidewalk that's sloped, that's 6 or 8 feet from grade level of the restaurant down to Turner Street, our predominant season is winter. Slips, falls, sliding into Turner Street, we're just opening up a can of worms. That's my 2 cents.
And again, my sense was, I'm all about walkability. I just don't know if we started off of a roundabout. Listen, I don't know if anyone watched me with that whole development off of by the AMS. Like, I was so about pedestrian traffic. Like, it's very important that we keep our pedestrians safe. So, anyway.
As I read suggested motion going to that condition C, to me, it's very harsh, as stated here. Provide final detailed alignment for a pedestrian sidewalk along the northern edge of access road connecting Chick-fil-A site to Mount Auburn Avenue sidewalk. I mean, that's what's suggested in here as a possible condition. I like the language here. At least gets our city engineer involved in taking another look. So we're not requiring that connectivity right now.
That verbiage has been struck. We've discussed that. That verbiage is to be struck from going to Mount Auburn Avenue. Natalie spoke about that.
Yeah, and so Bob, the fundamental, Bob, is, I think what we're fundamentally talking about is, what the engineer is going to talk about is it, can they actually develop it? That's what the engineer is going to talk about. What my question for you is, do you want pedestrians walking across that site off of the rotary? It's funny, because I listened to you, Bob, and I'm really shocked that you're slightly for pedestrian, because you're very conservative in your approach. I'm shocked that you would want to put a walkway literally alongside and I'm not judging you, I'm just saying, I'm surprised, and I want to make sure that we're conceptualizing this, the rotary, and then we're adding pedestrian traffic. So I'm just making sure. The engineers are going to say whether we can do it or not do it. do we fundamentally want to drive pedestrians abutting traffic around a rotary? If that is what you fundamentally believe is a right thing, then that's your prerogative. But I'm just making sure that we're all on the same page with this.
Okay, first of all, the sidewalk's already there, and we've been told there's crosswalks already in place. No, and I don't suggest that. In fact, I like the idea that there is enough space between this development and Hobby Lobby such that right now it's put in for greenery. But I think just recognizing that could be a walkway, I think there's some advantage instead of pedestrians coming in front of Hobby Lobby and immediately crossing the exit through, from the drive-through, allowing them to walk down a ways along Hobby Lobby, then coming across to the facility would be safer. I think if over time there is some connectivity across, away from the rotary to now maybe where the existing bus stop, or that's going to be there in the future or not. But I think we might well see that even people going into the shoe shop, Lamy Wellahan, some of those people may actually decide to walk across as somebody.
And they can walk across. They're just not walking alongside of a rotary. Like, they can literally walk across. I just want to make sure that we're clear about this rotary.
Yeah, and rightly so. So I think that's why I thought it would be good to have the city engineer just take another look at it. And, I think he may well follow up on that idea. Instead of all the greenery, that whole strip, at least suggest that people can walk around the corner, then take another right to the facility.
So Natalie, is the city engineer going to do a traffic, like a pedestrian, like safety evaluation of?
What the city engineer would
Do a pedestrian safety, like, evaluation of putting a sidewalk next to the rotary? Or is the engineer going to actually say, like, this is what, if we put a sidewalk here, this is what it's gonna look like?
Could look that way. More likely it would be looking at the grades. Is something ADA accessible going to fit in this spot?
But he's not gonna opine whether it's safety, so I think I made my point. I am open to a motion.
I make a motion that the proposal meets the requirements of Section 60-1277 for a site plan review and Section 60-1336 for a special exception proposing to construct a more or less 5,100 square foot Chick-fil-A restaurant with a dual lane drive-through, 46 off-street parking spaces, and associated site improvements at 65 Mount Auburn, Tax map 240-001, located in GB General Business District. The proposed project should be considered pursuant to Chapter 60, Article 16, Division 2, Site Plan Review, and Division 3, Special Exception, Article 4, Division 13, General Business District, with the following conditions. A, no development activity until any bonding or inspection fees are determined by the Auburn Engineering Department. B, blasting permit in advance of blasting from the City of Auburn, Planning, Permitting, and Code Department. And C, provide final detail and alignment for a pedestrian sidewalk from the Chick-fil-A site to the Hobby Lobby existing walkway.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Do you have a discussion of the motion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Natalie?
That is a failed motion.
Oh, no. So what does that mean?
Different
You
motion.
would have to entertain another motion.
Okay. So if it's a failed motion, that means we do not have a Chick-fil-A, correct?
Well, you don't have a Chick-fil-A under that motion.
Okay, but I just want to be clear with the board. So at this point in time, we can move on to item agenda next, and we now are moving on to the next item. and we're done, right? So we don't have Chick-fil-A?
I think they
Hold
would
on,
have to move to deny
hold
the
on.
project, right?
So that's our option at this point in time. So, or, that's our option, right?
Clarification.
Hold on, Bilal has something.
I was gonna say, I mean, there's also another motion that could be made. I mean, I don't know if that's still in the order of things, but I don't think.
No, it
it's-
can, I just want to
right.
make a point to the, I'm trying to
No,
make a point to the
no, I
board.
understand. No, I
Yeah,
understand,
I know,
I understand.
I'm very subtle, I know.
Yeah. David, I mean, I don't know if you had something for me, but I can propose another motion.
You absolutely
No, I
can,
know.
and at the same time, if the board is, you know, Natalie's correct, a 3-3 results in a failed motion, then I believe in your memo, there's a section that's referenced in there where if there's a denial, there should be the reason stated why that denial is in place then. And clearly, that would be helpful for everybody to know why.
So when
it's
do they,
not-
how do they state, when would they state the denial?
Excuse me?
You said, I'm sorry, I heard it, I was a little, I was having a hard time hearing you. So when should they have stated their denial? Or should they do it now, or?
The board you're saying? The board's vote was 3-3.
Yeah,
It's a failed motion. A failed motion results in the denial of
Correct.
the project out there. If the project is going to be denied, then per the ordinance, there should be reasons for why that project was
okay,
denied.
and that's my question. How should they state why they don't, so should we just go down the line, like, so Bilal, tell me why
Well,
you-
if you look at, if you folks have Natalie's memo, section 60-1304.2 lists a number of provisions there where it talks about stating the reasons for such denial upon a finding that, and there's a number of criteria here that would be reflected upon. So you're either you've made a motion, ideally there would be reasons as to why. I mean, this is a little unique in the sense that it was a split vote, right? Versus if it was clearly a denial one way or the other. Again, we'd be saying, what were the reasons for denial here? I think it would be helpful for the applicant and staff to know which of these criteria are failing to be met.
No, I think that's really reasonable.
I
So
think-
which of the criteria was failed, which of the criteria in your mind they failed to meet? So Ed, Bob, and Bilal, or in any shape.
I'm happy to explain my vote, and perhaps the other two members who voted negatively will do the same. I'm also happy to entertain another motion that incorporates the proposed revision to the staff's memo, proposed motion that we got this evening. I would vote in favor of that. My reason for voting no is that I don't think that the applicant has adequately addressed pedestrian connectivity.
And what part of the, okay, so I think what standard did that not meet, right? So he's asking you to look at the standards. So we all read our packets
Yeah,
and.
we all read our packets, and it's right here. It says pedestrian access and connectivity. It's one of the standards of review, and I'm saying that it wasn't met.
Okay, and so staff is saying it was met, and and can you explain to me why it was not met? So what David is asking you is,
Yes, I don't think it's meaningful connectivity to tell me that it goes from Chick-fil-A to Hobby Lobby. That's not meaningful pedestrian connectivity as far as I'm concerned.
and is connectivity a part of,
Yes, the first written denial would be the provisions for vehicular loading, unloading, and parking, and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will create hazards to safety. That would be the denial criteria that,
okay. So you felt their pedestrian access and connectivity, which was met, she said, from a pedestrian standpoint, it failed the safety measures. So you feel like this failed safety measures?
I do. And I think I stated my reasons before. I think you got
Yes,
people.
I agree, yep. I'm just making sure that the applicant knows. Okay.
And
Pretty
certainly from
much.
staff's perspective, we're not looking to keep this project from going forward. I mean, I think that's why we've recommended the condition that we have, because we're looking to try to come up with a solution out there that hopefully addresses that criteria.
I'd have to echo what was just said. I also was a little slow on the draw because I recognized from earlier, I thought we had struck C totally, but actually C came back into play by just changing some of the language. I wasn't quick enough to come in to suggest an amendment, which would be to actually recognize the absence of C as actually presented with the revised language from staff. So I apologize for being a little slow. I would like to have that reconsidered with the staff language. Thank you.
Yeah, I just did the previous two speakers. The standard of pedestrian access and connectivity was a sticking point for me, and the line here where it talks about that the staff supports this alignment and recommends that a sidewalk connection to the Turner Street sidewalk network be incorporated as a condition of approval. The motion did not have the connectivity or even the possibility, which was what the memo, I would have supported a motion that would allow the city engineer to finalize the location and design of a pedestrian connection to Turner Street sidewalk network. And if no suitable connection can be identified, the project should return to the planning board with a memo from the city engineer outlining their findings. I would have, that motion did not include that language, so.
He's not wrong on that now. I'm not sure if you caught
Yeah,
that.
so that's why I had to vote against
Yeah.
that as well.
Sorry.
Yeah. Did you catch what he
I
said? That
did
he's
not
not
catch
wrong.
him.
He's not
Sorry.
wrong on that one. Oops. Yeah, so as part of your pedestrian access and connectivity, it said staff supports this alignment and recommendation that a sidewalk connection to the Turner Street sidewalk network be incorporated as a condition for this approval. So that's part of our packet. Yeah.
On page 3 of 5 on the bottom.
Yes,
That's correct.
yes. I just miswrote your like the condition in the motion, not in the packet. This is, all along,
Okay.
staff was recommending connectivity to Turner Street.
It was a typo referencing Maine Auburn.
Yes.
Want to suggest a motion?
So I'd suggest, I make a motion. I make a motion that the proposal meets the requirements of sections 60-1277 for a site plan review and section 60-1336 for a special exception proposing to construct a more or less 5,100 square feet Chick-fil-A restaurant with a dual lane drive-through, 46 off-street parking spaces, and associated site improvements at 65 Mount Auburn, tax map 240001, located in the GB General Business District. The proposed project should be considered pursuant to Chapter 60, Article 16, Division 2, Site Plan Review, and Division 3, Special Exception. Article 4, Division 13, GB General Business District with the following conditions. A, no development activity until any bonding or inspection fees are determined by the Auburn Engineering Department. B, blasting permit in advance of blasting from the City of Auburn Planning, Permitting, and Code Department. And C, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall coordinate with the Auburn City Engineer to finalize the location and design of a pedestrian connection to the Turner Street sidewalk network. If no suitable connection can be identified, the project shall return to the planning board with a memo from the city engineer outlining their findings.
Do you have a second?
Seconded.
Do you have a discussion of the motion?
We should still add the Hobby Lobby connection in the front.
So, Bilal, you could amend your motion to,
I'd amend my motion to also include the
Sidewalk.
sidewalk extension to include from the Hobby Lobby site to the Chick-fil-A site.
Do I have to have a second of it?
we just need Bob to amend his second. Just say you approve the amendment for your second.
I agree with you. The change, the amendment.
Okay. So discussion of the motion. I obviously have made it very clear. I don't love the idea of a sidewalk there. I'm not going to make this a point of contention, so I will vote for it to move this forward, but I don't love the idea of it.
I agree. I don't think we should be encouraging pedestrian activity behind the building. And then procedurally, I have a question. If no suitable access can be agreed upon by the engineer and it comes back to the planning board, what's the ask of the planning board at that point? Are we being asked to approve it again without pedestrian access.
Any other discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed, motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is a public hearing site plan review for the 67 Kitty Hawk Avenue temporary fire station facility. I'll hand it over to staff for a briefing.
Sorry. So